My favorite saint is Augustine, and it is because of how he lived his life, his writings on his confessions, and his truth and honesty in his encounter with Jesus Christ and in his love for Christ, and how that completely changed his life from one that was somewhat promiscuous and somewhat confused by the various ideologies of his day. And then when he encountered the truth and the love of Jesus Christ, his entire life opened up to the Lord. And that brought him great peace, great joy, tears for his past life, and yet knowing the mercy and the love of Jesus Christ and the forgiveness that Christ alone can bring. And you can see the healing that took place in his life, and he became a great disciple and a great man of faith from that, and a great bishop. My Episcopal motto is taken from the wedding feast of Cana. They're the words of the Blessed Mother when she goes to ask Jesus to help the couple. He questions why, and with that reminds her that his time had not come, but she speaks to the waiters and says, do whatever he tells you. And so her focus is on Jesus. She has got confidence in Jesus and trust in Jesus. And so I chose that as my Episcopal motto, because I desire to have that same trust and confidence in Jesus Christ, and a desire to lead others to Christ, so that the focus is not on me as a bishop, but rather on Jesus Christ, and pointing to Christ and saying, do whatever he tells you. So I see it as an invitation to people to encounter Christ in the gospel, to open their hearts to praying with the Gospels and with sacred scripture, and really becoming attuned and listening to the voice of Jesus. I think the most challenging thing is the culture of today, and how much people have really been formed by that culture rather than by Christ himself and the message of the gospel. And so the worldview of many people today is the worldview of humanity, or the worldview of an ideology, or the worldview of a human being who has not encountered Christ. And that is even true with Catholics who have a superficial encounter with Christ rather than the deep encounter to which we are called. And so it's helping people to really look at, in their encounter with Christ, of, first of all, having the worldview of the gospel, of the scriptures, of the worldview, seeing the world through the eyes of Jesus. And so it means seeking the will of the Father first, and putting the Father first in our lives, and in seeking the will of the Father, conforming my will, my heart, my mind, my thoughts to that of Jesus and to that of the gospel and the Father. Jesus has told us in the gospel, my very food is to do the will of the Father. And every disciple has to ask herself or himself, is my will really and my food to do the will of the Father? And does that come first? And that is tremendously challenging in the times in which we live. The uniqueness of the Archdiocese of Denver is the visit of St. John Paul II in 1993. That visit changed everything in the Archdiocese of Denver. There were many naysayers, even among the bishops, who really did not think that World Youth Day of 1993 would be successful, or it would have only a few thousand who would come. And instead, we had over 700,000 who came and encountered, at that time, Pope John Paul II. And so that visit, his presence, and his influence in calling us into that encounter with Jesus Christ changed everything in the Archdiocese. And there are still those who talk about the visit, who speak about it. I was privileged to be there as a priest and coordinating the liturgies that he celebrated, which was amazing. And that evangelization has continued to this day. And that is why there's so many apostolates within the Archdiocese, started by lay people, and very wonderful apostolates that are reaching out in various ways within the church, and whether it be things like the Augustine Institute or Focus or the Christ in the City, Amazing Parish, the list just goes on of all of the different apostolates. And at their foundation was that encounter with Christ during World Youth Day in 1993. The impact of it cannot be overestimated. Certainly watching John Paul II, he was strong then, he was vibrant, watching him with the young people, and you could sense his deep love for the young people, his care for them. I will never forget one young man who, we had a number of young people and older people who were there for Make-A-Wish, who wanted to see John Paul II for various reasons. But there was one young man who was dying of cancer who wanted to see John Paul. And just watching the encounter that took place between the two of them and standing close by and just observing the depth of love, the depth of compassion. And it was only a few weeks after that visit that that young man died. And just seeing the joy in him, the peace in him from the words that were exchanged between the Holy Father and him were great, and one that I will never forget.